Hi, I'm Sarah Higgins, Ruminant and Equine Veterinary Manager with MSD Animal Health. Today on this Vet Tech Talk, I'm going to discuss bovine coronavirus and MSD Animal Health's first bovine coronavirus vaccine, Bovilis nasogency. Bovine coronavirus is a beta coronavirus in the Coronaviridae family. It is a ubiquitous virus which is pneumoenteric, which means it replicates in the respiratory tract and the intestinal tract. It can be transmitted both directly and indirectly, and the main sources of transmission are from dam to calf and calf to calves. It can be transmitted via the fecal-oral route and also the respiratory route. Bovine coronavirus is associated with three distinct clinical syndromes: neonatal calf diarrhea, winter dysentery, and bovine respiratory disease. Neonatal calf diarrhea associated with coronavirus typically occurs in calves 1 to 3 weeks of age, and it results in a malabsorptive diarrhea as the virus replicates in the epithelial cells of the small intestine and the large intestine. Winter dysentery, on the other hand, is associated with adult cattle. Cows typically present with a diarrhea with or without blood, lethargy, fever, reduced feed intake, reduction in milk, and occasionally respiratory signs such as a cough and ocular nasal discharge. The clinical signs we see in cattle with bovine respiratory disease associated with bovine coronavirus are fever, lethargy, reduced feed intake, increased respiration rate, an ocular discharge, serous nasal discharge, and a non-productive cough. How does bovine coronavirus result in bovine respiratory disease? Well, we'll start off with healthy cattle. In calves, there is ciliated epithelial cells and goblet cells in the upper respiratory tract that form the innate defence mechanism. Goblet cells in these healthy calves produce a thick viscous layer, and this viscous layer traps pathogens and debris in the respiratory tract, preventing them moving down to the lower respiratory tract. The cilia then beat in a coordinated manner, and the pathogens or debris are expelled from the respiratory tract by swallowing or coughing. In infected calves with bovine coronavirus, these goblet cells are affected, resulting in a reduction in mucus formation. And ultimately, this opens the door for other BRD pathogens such as RSV, PI3, Mannheimia hemolytica, Mycoplasma bovis, and Pasteurella multisida. Why should you consider incorporating Bovilis nasogency into your vaccination regime against bovine respiratory disease? Recent research carried out on dairy farms in Ireland demonstrated that 100% of the farms were seropositive for bovine coronavirus, while 57% of the farms were positive on PCR for bovine coronavirus. Also, a study carried out by O'Neill et al. On the prevalence and trends of bovine coronavirus in respiratory disease in Ireland found that BRSV and bovine coronavirus were the #1 co-detecting pairings in calves with respiratory disease at 21.6%. This study also demonstrated that bovine coronavirus has pronounced seasonality with seasonal peaks in November and April. This illustrates the importance of implementing a correctly timed vaccination program against bovine coronavirus. From a bacterial point of view, there is growing evidence that bovine coronavirus is associated with Mycoplasma bovis and Mannheimia hemolytica. So overall, bovine coronavirus achieves significance as a respiratory pathogen while acting synergistically with other bovine respiratory disease pathogens. How do we control bovine respiratory disease? Well, there's a multifaceted approach to controlling respiratory disease in cattle, which incorporates good environment, biosecurity measures, hygiene, management, and also vaccination. And vaccination is a vital component in controlling bovine coronavirus associated with respiratory disease in calves. Bovilis nasogency is the first and only vaccine against bovine coronavirus in Ireland. This vaccine contains a live attenuated strain of bovine coronavirus. It is indicated for the active immunisation of cattle from the day of birth to reduce clinical signs of upper respiratory tract disease and reduce nasal viral shedding from infection with bovine coronavirus. The vaccine stimulates gene expression for receptors and cytokines in an antiviral innate immune response. The vaccination can be administered to calves from the day of birth. It is a 2 ml dose administered intranasally with an onset of immunity of 5 days and a duration of immunity of 12 weeks. This vaccine has a concurrent use claim with Bovilis intranasal RSP live. Both vaccines can be administered on the same day, not mixed, to calves from the day of birth. What vaccination program can you implement on your farm to your calves to provide the broadest protection against bovine respiratory disease? From the day of birth, you can administer Bovilis intranasal RSP live to provide protection against RSV and PI3, and also Bovine Coronavirus to provide protection against bovine coronavirus. Both vaccines are a 2 ml dose administered intranasally. And at 3 weeks of age, you can administer Bovine IBR marker live intranasally to calves to provide protection against bovine herpes virus 1, which causes IBR. You can also administer Bovine Bovipast RSP on the same day at 3 weeks of age. This is a 5 ml dose subcutaneously to provide protection against RSV, PI3 and Mannheimia hemolytica. This vaccination requires a second dose 4 weeks later. For more information on Bovine Coronavirus or our Bovine vaccine range, visit bovilis.ie or contact your own veterinary practitioner.